Requesting connection. Established. Encrypted. We're live. The show you've been asking for. Advice, technology, and community. Linux first, all others second. This is Ask Noah.
Live from Altispeed Technologies, the Ask Noah show starts right now. This is the show where we came to do all the things on Linux they said couldn't be done and take your questions on how to do the same. The phone lines are open this hour. To be a part of the program, it is a free call, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624, or send an email to live@asknoahshow.com. My name is Noah Chalaya. I am your host. Delighted to be here with you as another episode of the Ask Noah show kicks out this hour. Joining me, my co-host, Mr. Steve Evans. Welcome in, sir.
Good evening, Noah. You know, one of the things that has been on both of our hearts is this idea of thankfulness. And we have a really great audience, you know, people who write in. Some of their emails don't make it on the show because they're sent personally to us. And I've had a couple of people really attempting to help with the Wi-Fi issues, to include offering to replace all of my access points for me. I wanted to just say a thank you for people who are thinking of me in that way. I really appreciate it, and I just wanted to call that out here at the top of the show.
That's really cool. I will tell you, so last week I was trying to make the argument that you should consider the Open WRT1. And when I was listening to the playback, one of the things that caught me is I kept throwing another R in there, Open WRTR1, which was frustrating to me for two reasons. One is I wasn't doing myself any favors in trying to convince you to switch over to the Open WRT1. But the other part is I've been using that project, or at least dabbling in it, since the original WRT54G that it came out with. So yeah, nobody gives Steve any access points, lessen our chances of him checking out the Open WRT1. And I need a reason to come back and get my power supply and my stool.
Yeah. Well, that could be the reason by themselves.
All right. You want to dig into some feedback?
Let's do it.
Our first email comes in from Michael. Michael writes in and says, "Hi, Noah and Steve. I heard you say that you may go back to Cisco switching gear. I'm a senior network engineer for a large VAR, and I created an open source project from pulling data from HPE and Cisco switches." And he links to his GitHub. So here's what I have. Here's what I've determined, Steve. To a certain degree, getting back into Cisco gear has done a couple of things. The first thing is it feels like a really comfortable old sweatshirt. You know, is just getting back in, and I was pleasantly surprised that it's probably been, you know, all my initial training when I was going through networking certification stuff was all through Cisco, and you know, the first test that you do in Cisco is it really has nothing to do with being a good network engineer. It has everything to do with how good you are at being able to calculate subnets with one piece of transparency, an erasable marker, and how much saliva you can muster because there's nothing to erase the marker with. And they give you one Kleenex to wipe the transparency off. And so by the time you walk out of that test, you got marker all over your hands and stuff. And then how fast can you subnet a bunch of different things, which, by the way, amount of times that I've done that in the field, doing the math here in my head, carry the 0. I've done it exactly 0 times. I use a subnet calculator when I'm trying to go through and figure it out. So the only time I've ever actually calculated subnets by hand is when I'm teaching other people how to subnet. And so it's useful for understanding it. I don't know that there's a lot of value in doing it over and over and over and over and over again. When you get later into Cisco certification, one of the things that's really nice, you can rent entire Cisco labs for like $40. There are places, $40 for like a month. They will rent you an entire Cisco lab, and it'll come with like a couple of routers, a few switches, a couple of access points, that sort of thing. And then you can go through, and they give you almost like a terminal controller that gives you console access to all the equipment. And then you SSH in, or they'll give you a VPN and you SSH in. And then you can go through and connect to all of the equipment and do all the configuration. And then there's typically like a blow it away, start over button that wipes the configs. But it's really, really nice because you can get hands-on with the equipment without having to buy a bunch of lab stuff to run in the sandbox. And so I've really enjoyed getting back into the comfortability of it all still works the same as it did 10 years ago. I like the fact that there's lots of lab environments out there that you can rent and get hands-on with equipment. I like the fact that there's tons of used equipment that's out there. I like the fact that GNS3 allows me to imitate, or not virtualize is not really the right word, but load a Cisco iOS image into a piece of software that lets me emulate. That's the word I'm looking for. The various different components so that I can build my own little lab and try stuff and teach other people about it. And then lastly, stuff like Michael. People like Michael have been in this field for such a long time that every imaginable problem is solved 16 ways to Sunday. And so there's an Ansible module for configuring Cisco gear. There is Michael's GitHub repository that deals with the Cisco switching and discovery and pulls information from it. Everybody has an answer how to do stuff and how to fix stuff. And the other thing is, when I just did an informal hands around the shop, I've learned that I can get a long way into avoiding stuff by just asking, hey, what are we all comfortable with? And if I get a lot of no's, that's my sign that I'm off in crazy land. And if I get a lot of yeses, that's my sign that I'm on to something. And the response I got when I said, like, show of hands, who would be interested in switching to Cisco gears? I'm already doing it. I'm going out to buy one now. I've never seen it before, but I want to learn. And I thought, okay, this is good. And so I did two things. I bought a Cisco switch for my house so that I don't install anything inside of a client that I wouldn't put in my house. And so just to keep that consistent, I got to use 3850 off of eBay, and I'm playing around with it in my house. I bought a 24-port 3850 that I brought that is going to eventually make its way to the shop once it has documentation with it. And the idea there will be, here's a switch, go play with it, see what you think. And then largely I'm going to let the newest guy on the team make the final call. Are we comfortable with doing switches where it's all CLI based and where there's not really a web UI? There is, but it's slow and it's not great, and I don't really think much of it. And frankly, I don't know that there's a lot of other people that really expect to configure stuff with the web UI. I think most of it's done right on the good old command line. So for all those reasons, so far it's been a really, really smooth switch, pun not intended. But the switch market has really gotten weird lately. For a while there was a lot of really good switches out there, and there still are. But over time, some of the previously really good switches have all gone cloud-based. There's some that have always been cloud and or controller-based, and now that's kind of dried up. And so there's really, really expensive switches that are local. And if I was going to buy really, really expensive switches that are local, then there's not really that much of a price break for the Cisco. Then I'm back to, well, why not just use Cisco? And so about the only thing I don't like about Cisco, and the only thing I've really bumped my head against, is updates, right? That's always the thing, is they charge you an arm and a leg to update anything. And so we've had to come up with a strategy for if you're going to use equipment and it's not always going to have the latest updates, because frankly, there's many clients that just, if I told them what they'd have to pay to get the latest Cisco iOS, they would just not, they just wouldn't let us, they just wouldn't buy switches from us. So used gets you a long way. Having a plan to not have it exposed to the open internet gets you a long way. But I really appreciate Michael writing in that, because there are advantages out there. And Steve, this is, in your opinion, a really great place to start. I
went through 3 or 4 of the markdown files that he's got in his Ubuntu for network engineers. There's been it has a lot of text. I was going to say a lot of work been put into this. It's got screenshots. It's got all kinds of stuff, from here's how you click around in Ubuntu to these are the types of things you might want to install. Here's how to install KVM. It's got a lot of really good information in it, especially for beginners. It's all the part of the repository I read was all for Ubuntu, but in general, I was impressed by the volume, and I skimmed. So I did not start at the top and go to the bottom of every one of these documents. I kind of hopped through different sections, but the clarity and quality seemed to be there. So I give it a thumbs up for that. And there's also, so he's got 2 of his GitHub links up here. one for the documentation and one for the tooling that he used for grabbing this stuff. So we'll have that in the show notes.
That was really cool. And grabbing information off of switches is a really useful thing, because once you get in, if you've just got one switch, not really the end of the world to log into it. But we were troubleshooting a network issue a few weeks ago, and it wasn't, I don't take credit for this. It was actually another guy at the shop that came in behind me and was like, dude, what are you doing? You're essentially guessing at troubleshooting. We got to get insight to this thing, and we got to go start from the ground and kind of work our way up. And it was absolutely the right approach. And he arrived at the solution much quicker than I would have, in part because he is putting together from the ground up how to do these things. And so I look at that and I think that's really the way to go. And so in the same way, when you have, I don't want to call it beginners and or getting started with this kind of stuff, I think that's really awesome. So yeah, really, really awesome. And thank you to Michael for putting this together and sharing it. And we will absolutely have it in the show notes, podcast.asknoahshow.com. Charlie writes in and says, "Good day, everyone. I came across this new program for de-Googled phones. It's called FMD Android, the open source alternative to Google's Find My Device. Find your device and control it remotely. It works over SMS, instant messengers, or FMD's server web interface." And then he links to the GitLab. So Steve, do you have a desire or a need for a Find My Device kind of thing?
I could see where this would be useful, especially because I tend to leave my phone wherever. Mm-hmm. However, when I'm traveling for work, it is on my person because that is a requirement. So I have yet to, where's Wood? I have never lost a phone in the 10 or 12 years that I've been traveling for Red Hat. I've exploded one and, had other mishaps, but never lost one. So I can definitely see it being worthwhile on a spare phone that we keep. For example, we happen to have a phone plan where we have an extra number just because it came with the phone plan. And so I could see it being very useful for that and giving it to in-laws and then them being like, oh, well, we're lost, or where are you? And they can't tell us. We just do the Find My Device and find it on the map. Like, I could totally see that being useful.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I think maybe a handful of times in my life, even when I had a full Google phone, did I ever reach for that feature? And I would say it was like 50% success, right? 50% of the time, it was moderately helpful, and it set the phone off or did a thing, and I was able to find it. But the other half of the time, it was things like it was on Do Not Disturb or powered off entirely, or the battery was dead, or it wasn't in the same geographical location. And so I rarely, I guess somewhat similar to you, I rarely have it to where I'm like, yeah, I have no earthly idea where the last time I saw my phone was. Part of it is it just goes off so gosh darn much that it's difficult for me to say, it's like if I ever went 10 minutes where somebody wasn't reaching out or asking for something, that would stand out more than anything else. And so it doesn't really take much for me not to forget my phone. So it's not really for me, but I appreciate Charlie writing in, because I'm sure that will help with somebody.
It helped with my wife if she wasn't on an iPhone, because I'm constantly hearing her using the Find My Device ping. I'll hear her phone going off in the house somewhere because she never knows where she's left it.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, huh? So maybe, but I suppose it wouldn't necessarily work with, iOS though. Yeah.
Well, because it's specifically called Android, I have to imagine not.
Touche. Brian writes in and says, "Hey, Noah and Steve, I want to start out by saying thanks for all you do for the Linux community. I've been a fan for a long time, and I've been a Linux system admin since the late 90s. My wife and I started investing in real estate about 5 years ago, and we self-manage our properties. You have an episode in which you talked about the need to share a number with your wife, and you ported the number to a few carriers and then made it a virtual number. Can you please talk about that again or share the episode? I've been trying to find it with no luck." So, okay. The story on that, when I was a little 5-year-old kid, and I was standing inside of my, at the time, kitchen, my dad brought home one of the first AT&T cordless phones that we ever had. And I was absolutely enamored with the thing. And I wanted to play with it, and I wanted to see and I thought it was so cool that you could take this thing out and you could have a telephone and you could go a certain distance from this base, but it required that you to be within range of this base, because if I took it over to my grandma's house, it didn't work, but if I did it at our house, it worked. And so, I mean, you can just imagine little Noah being really excited and enamored with this phone. And so we had a phone number at that time, and I would call my grandma and tell her, I need you to call me. And then I would go out in the backyard, and does the phone ring out here? Oh yeah, it does, and it works. Oh, but if I go this far, it starts to get staticky and it drops. And I can't describe to you how enamored I was with this cordless telephone. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. So many years later, my dad starts a company, and he takes what used to be our home phone number and uses it for essentially, it was an education company to make material to train doctors how to pass their boards. And so he used the phone number for many years to do that. And a few years after that, he decided he was not going to do that anymore because the material was now out of date, and he didn't really want to go through the work to republish or to update all of the training material. And so he just was going to let the thing go. And at that time, I said, hey, that phone number, I think I want it. And sure, have at it. And so I ported it to FlowRoute, and I just park it there. And FlowRoute is they're an online SIP provider. And what I like about them is that I can port numbers to them, and it costs me $1 a month. And so for many years after that, that phone number, I had it, but it just sat on FlowRoute. And we had a situation in which the school system wants to do this obnoxious, idiotic thing in which they have a call list, but they don't, instead of like a human being picking up the phone and calling, and then, they hit the voicemail or whatever. And so then they go, oh, mom didn't answer, let me call dad. No. We don't do that. We have some stupid robot thing that just repeats a message 9 times to say, school is canceled, your kid fell off and hit their head and they're being rushed to the emergency, or whatever the thing is, right? And so we got hit a couple of times in which first we tried it different ways, call her phone, and then, oh no, she's missing calls, whatever, call my phone. And it just didn't work out. For one reason or another, it just didn't work out. The way this automated system worked just didn't work. And so eventually I thought about it, and I went back to, hey, I remember this phone I have. What I need isn't individual cell phones that follow people around. I need the equivalent of a home phone, what we used to have, where somebody would call a number and somebody from that household, everybody from that household, could hear that there was a ringing phone and pick up and then direct you to the necessary party. Oh, mom's not here, but dad can run, or whatever it is, right? So I port this number over to jmp.chat, which is quickly becoming one of my favorite services on planet Earth. And what I like about jmp.chat is it's $5 a month, not $1 a month. So it's not really a great place to park phone numbers you're not using. But what they do with the phone number is they expose everything, the calls and the texts, over XMPP, which is wonderful. Because for me, I can bridge it to Matrix. But even if you weren't interested in doing that, you can download Gajim or Pigeon or Conversations or one of the many various different XMPP clients that there have been out for 20 years. But wait, it gets better. They run their own XMPP server, and they have the JMP app. So if you are a person who just says to themselves, I want a phone number and I want it to ring, or I want to receive text, you can download the JMP app. You can register for a phone number, or you can port one in. You can pay with Bitcoin. You can pay with dollars. You can pay with a credit card. You can do whatever you want. They are very flexible with how they take your money. And then the other thing I like about them, they don't do debt. So they don't do like you owe us this much. It's you fill the pot and then they drain it back down. So I have a number for myself. I have a work number. I have a personal number. My wife has a personal number. And then we did this like basically the modern equivalent of a home phone. And so I took this number that has followed me around since my childhood, has been around since my childhood, ported it to JMP, and then both my wife and I just signed into the same account. And so the advantage there was when the school's automated system goes off, it doesn't matter who is available. Both of us get the phone call at the same time. The other one knows that the other one got the phone call because it stopped ringing. And if for some weird reason, which is, by the way, never once happened, but if we ever did both miss the call, it would go to a voicemail that's then sent as an MP3 as an XMPP message to both of our phones. And so then we both see it. We can hear all the schools, one of our kids got hit by a bus and so needs to be whatever. And so we can hear all of that comes through. And so it allows us to replicate that home phone experience. The last step, which I'm almost positive I didn't talk about in whatever episode I mentioned this, because it's a fairly recent development, Polycom came out with a SIP cordless phone. And so I have recaptured my love of that phone number ringing a cordless phone, because guess what JMP allows you to do? They allow you to have that number delivered over a SIP address. And so and they give you a SIP server to use. And so I took that Polycom cordless phone and I signed in with the SIP credentials to that JMP number. And lo and behold, little 5-year-old Noah, now in 11 years old, has a cordless phone, and that phone number rings a cordless phone yet again. And so I've carried it into 2025 just with different technology, and now it's going over IP bits instead of little copper bits. But hey, same concept, same thing still works. And so that is how we share that number and how we do that to deal with it. And I think it's great. The other thing is, you're in property management and wanted to do something, you could do a thing where you can send an XMPP message to their bot and you can change the delivery mechanism. So you could have it forward to your cell phone, and then if you said like after 8 o'clock, I want to forward it to so-and-so cell phone or the on-call manager, and you can change it dynamically on the fly just by messaging the bot and say, now send it here, now send it there, now send it to all the places, whatever you want to do. So jmp.chat is how I do that, and I am extremely happy with them. I log in once a year for the phone numbers that I have. I fill the accounts up to like $60-$70, which gets me through the year, and then I don't think about it again. And it just works, and it 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 works. And I love it. There's not a server I have to maintain. There isn't a service I have to worry about. It's all just provided for me by a bunch of other nerds that want to deliver communication the way I want to interact with it, not through some proprietary app, not through just, hey, tell us what XMPP address to send your traffic to, and it shows up. I love it. Jason writes in and says, hey, Noah and Steve, my church is currently running Windows 10 for recording the service and audio streaming. I have informed them that in October, they're going to be running without security updates, and we need to upgrade hardware in order to run Windows 11. I would love to just load Linux on the current machine and rock on. We have a very popular piece of worship software called Proclaim that is Windows or Mac only. I thought maybe one of you would have encountered this problem. I would love to hear your alternatives to Proclaim, paid or not. So we're missing a little bit of information. I did just a brief DuckDuckGo search, and I found that Proclaim is church presentation software. So if the most popular church presentation software is not Proclaim, in fact, you're the first time I had heard of it, it's ProPresenter, which is made by a company that all they do is church software. But the other thing is, there are a number of things that have replicated open source ProPresenter, and the most prominent of which is a software thing called FreeShow. And if your church if they're looking for the ability to do things like lyrics on the screen, that sort of thing, I would implore you in the strongest possible terms to check out FreeShow. Now, there's a couple things I'm going to recommend here. The first is check out FreeShow, because I think it'll be a drop-in replacement for what you're doing with Proclaim. The second thing is, if you are willing to run that on Ubuntu Studio, the team at Ubuntu Studio, Eric Eichmeyer, bakes all of this into Ubuntu Studio. So it's literally an appliance distro for doing this stuff. And the third thing I'll make a plug for is, we have a Ansible playbook that we have published that is specifically designed to turn a x86 computer into a broadcast appliance. And effectively, how this came about was, I work, as many of you know, for a commercial radio station. And in that radio station, there is a cluster of 26 different radio stations that are spread out all throughout North Dakota and Minnesota. And one of the things that they are looking to do is get into streaming. And so I was asked to I was asked to get involved with this and help out. And so what we did was, we went through and we built a playbook that effectively walks through and installs things like OBS, installs the requisite drivers for either doing the Blackmagic SDI capture, or there's a Chinese site that I'd be lying to you if I said it was really great. I'm not sure I would agree that it's really good, but it is cheaper if you're trying to find a budget way to get it done. And we put all of this together, and in the end, published it to include Simon Quigley put together an apt repo. And effectively what that does is it gives you a little piece of software, and the little piece of software asks you for a provisioning code. And if you take the provisioning code, you can then say, I'm interested in, and then, so in our case, because they're stations, they all have call letters. So we'll do something like KNOX. And so so from their perspective, you install Ubuntu on a machine, you open this little piece of software and it says enter the provisioning code, you press KNOX and you hit provision, and it automatically goes out to GitLab, downloads the playbook, installs Ansible, begins to kick off an Ansible job, runs the Ansible playbook to configure this whole thing. It installs OBS, it installs all the drivers, it pulls down all of the templates and the files and all of that, imports all the scenes, configures all the cameras, and so you have a broadcasting appliance. It's purpose-built to do nothing other than streaming. And effectively what I did is I shamelessly ripped off Resi. Resi is the go-to streaming provider for most churches, and they send you a hardware box. And I was troubleshooting a Resi box one day, and they asked me to plug in a monitor, and I find out it's running CentOS. And I'm like, well, these guys are shipping a computer running CentOS with an SDI capture card. I can do that too. And so we put it out on the internet for free. So I'm posting a link in the Geek Lab to the Ansible repository. Now, it won't have all of the polish by way of the little provisioning piece of software. That was something that you would have to do yourself, because obviously you'd have to put all those assets someplace that they can get to, and then you'd have to configure. There's more stuff that goes into it if you want that kind of clean white glove approach. But it was done that way so that any engineer that works for Latent Media can just plug in a flash drive, type in the call center or the call sign for that radio station, and all of the exact way that studio wants to use that broadcasting appliance comes back down. What we did was, for the public one, we just put some generic plates in there, some generic things that have, like one camera, like it says something like host, and then dual shot, and then guest only, and screen capture and stuff like that. And so you'll get something, it'll be usable, but you might want to use that and then go back and tweak it for your specific use case. But no matter which route you want to go, either, you can go down the route of upgrading to Windows 11 and buy new hardware, I guess. I would tell you that it's money better spent to invest your time and effort into doing this, into building a broadcast appliance. And I think your church will probably be better served. Steve, I'm just kind of clipping along here because I'm guessing these are not up your wheelhouse, but you feel free to jump in if you have something to add.
Nope. This is the Noah show.
Okay. Tiny writes in and says, I'm curious to hear about Noah's configuration for Matrix so that he can handle urgent and non-urgent communication in one app. Right now, I'm struggling with routing notifications correctly, and I'm hoping to hear about what Noah's setup looks like, and it can help. So the name of the game in Matrix, and indeed why I think it long-term, even though it can be abysmal to use at times, and I admit that, I think the name of the game is everything is a room. So in the same way that in Linux, everything is a file or a directory, everything in Matrix is a room. And here's why that becomes so critical. If you and I have a place that we are talking, you and I have a room. And so by default, most people, when they initiate a DM with someone, they slide into the DM of somebody else's box. It's a conversation between two people. So in Matrix, that's a room with two participants. And that is the definition of a DM. A room with two people. The brilliance in the design and the simplicity of Matrix is, because everything's a room, that DM or that common meeting place where we agree that's where we're going to have a conversation, you can have as many accounts as you want in that quote unquote DM. And so if you start to divide, if you assign accounts per role in your life, I am Noah and I work at Altispeed Technologies. So I have a Noah Altispeed Technologies Matrix account. But I'm also Noah, the host of the Ask Noah show, and I have at kernellinux:/linuxdelta.com that you can send me a Matrix message to. I also have a personal Matrix server that I run myself that only has my family on it. And that has an account. And so I'll start with the most important and I'll work my way back. Well, my wife. There is absolutely never a situation, there is no situation or any job I'm working on or any situation or anything that I'm ever doing where I don't want her to be able to get a hold of me. Where anything she has to say is more important than absolutely anything else I'm doing, to include this radio show right this very second. If she needed my attention for something, I would absolutely want whatever thing she wants to say to pop up in front of my face no matter what I'm doing. So we have a room. And we have two rooms, actually. The first room is the I want your attention right now room. And we both agree that that's the place where if we need each other's attention, that's where we go. And so to that end, my work account, my Altispeed account, my Linux Delta account, and my personal account are all in that room. We have another room that's the, do not disturb room, or the get to it when you can room. That room has all those accounts in it, but it doesn't have notifications turned on. So let's play that out in practicality. If I'm at work and I'm doing something, that work account goes off because it's in that room and it has notifications in the priority room. If I'm doing a show, that room goes off because of my community account at kernellinux:/linuxdelta.com is in there and notifications are enabled, and so it goes off. And if I'm completely disconnected from the rest of the world and the only place I'm looking for traffic is my personal account, that's in a very select group of rooms, notifications are on, it's in that room, she sends a message, it goes off. So it works. And you can configure that however it is you want. You can divvy that up however you want, but that's that big picture. That's how I get most of the division of notifications. And then the rest of it all kind of falls into the boxes, right? So I only see work traffic when I'm signed into my work account. I only see personal stuff when I'm signed into my personal account. I only see community stuff or public stuff when I'm signed into that account. And then if I want to see more stuff at one time, I'll just sign in. So I'll have like Fluffy Chat and Schlittily Chat and Element all installed on my phone. So I have 3 different Matrix clients, and then I can choose which one or all of which I want to see at one time. But wait, there's more. So the last step is every once in a while, I want to put my phone into Do Not Disturb, and I think I don't want any notifications, even if it's my wife and there's something that she wants to tell me. There are some things that, I'm in a meeting or I am doing anything, and so I want my phone in Do Not Disturb. And yet, like I said, if she thinks she needs to bust through that, I want to give her a way to do that. And so the way that I've chosen to do that, it was actually Sleuth that helped me do this. He set up a bot, and that bot, I forget the name. I think it's the community manager bot, I think is what he called the project. We eventually forked it and made some modifications to it, but it exists now as the Bravo bot. And the Bravo bot is an homage back to the original Motorola Bravo pager. And if you had one of those, it was one of the most beautiful devices on planet Earth, because what it allowed you to do was one-way communication. There was no microphone, there was no camera, there was no read conference, there was none of that. It was just a one-way tap on the shoulder, I need your attention now. And so the Bravo bot runs, and it sits in the rooms that I've invited it to, and it listens for a specific keyword. The keyword is Page Noah. And if it hears that keyword, whatever follows after that, it dumps that payload into a very specific room called Noah's Pager. That room is monitored by all of the accounts I just mentioned, in addition to a special account that is Noah's Pager, and it runs on a Palm, the little tiny Palm 100, which if you haven't looked it up, I'll have a link for you in the show notes, but it is the most adorable 2-inch Android phone you've ever seen in your life. And that device is on me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It can't take phone calls. It's not signed. It's signed into one account, which has exactly one room, and that is the pager account, and that is it. So you can't message. I don't message back. It doesn't do anything. Its only function in life is to make obnoxious noises when the Bravo bot hears the key phrase in any one of the rooms that it's watching. And so the way that that's played itself out is, for the most part, I can divide communication up based on what account is in what room. But when push comes to shove, when there's an emergency, there are people that work at my company that are in a room that have that bot in it. In fact, really anybody could if they so chose to. But there's a handful of people that are comfortable with it. They know how it works. They know what they're doing, and they know when not to use it, I guess, is the most important thing. And then anybody in my personal life that they really need my attention and they're going to need it at any time, on any place, that's where you go. My next iteration, which this is more aspirational, it's not a reflection of reality yet. My next iteration is I am someday going to get that pager room to work over Meshtastic. And so I can replace this aging Palm 100 with a Meshtastic LilyGo of sorts and carry that thing around. And that's going to be the thing that sets off the pager, and it'll go over the Meshtastic network. But at the moment, that's the very, very complicated, convoluted way that I'm dealing with notifications.
From the Linux Newswire newsroom, this is the Week in Review with JT.
For the week of July 27th, 2025, here's the Linux and open source news. The video editor Shotcut has released version 25.07. Thunderbird has released version 141, and Firefox has also released version 141. IPFire 29 has had an updated release, and GitHub has called for public funding of open source software, citing Germany's sovereign tech agency as a distribution model that could be scaled up to the full EU level. In open source security news, a remote access Trojan made its way into the Arch user Linux repository under the names of LibreWolf Fix Bin, Firefox Patch Bin, and Zen Browser Patched Bin. Another reminder to not blindly trust packages from the AUR, PPA, or even from Snapcraft. A new Linux malware named Kosuke may have been developed with artificial intelligence and is using seemingly benign JPEG images of panda bears to deploy malware directly into system memory. Gunra ransomware was first observed in April of this year in a campaign that targeted Windows systems using techniques inspired by the infamous Conti ransomware. There are now Linux variants in the wild. In open source AI news, China's AI startup Zhipu releases an open source model GLM 4.5. Tencent releases Huan World Model 1.0 as an open source AI for 3D scene generation. Alibaba has announced the release of WAN 2.2, an open source suite of large video generation models based on the mixture of experts architecture. Alibaba also announced Qwen 3 Coder, which is now a top performing coding model. And lastly, Cisco donates AI agent tech to the Linux Foundation.
Bellusci. He is a senior principal product manager for Red Hat AI, and Myriam Ventanis. She is a principal product manager for Red Hat AI. Welcome in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So talk to me a little bit about AI and how Red Hat's focus is shifting. Obviously, this is coming up in all manner of circles. Doesn't really matter the product division. Doesn't matter what geek circle you get into. Somebody wants to talk about AI. How is that changing Red Hat's focus?
AI is being infused everywhere, right? And we're seeing that across not just technology sectors, but in healthcare, in legal services. I mean, it has a potential to accelerate innovation in just about every field. And as such, here at Red Hat, we're looking to find the synergies and the places that we're already leaders in. And then help apply AI to those fields, right? You look at products like Ansible Lightspeed. Ansible automation platform is incredibly powerful. But now if you can get to a point where you can have people saying, hey, write me a playbook, and, or how do I write this playbook, or which playbook would be good for this? It accelerates a customer's ability to execute. And so our focus isn't about AI as this new thing as much as it is AI being able to be applied in ways that our customers already need and do, and we have the expertise in. I don't know, do you have a different point of view, Myriam?
No, I totally agree. I think Red Hat has always been really good at doing things in an open source way. We've always really liked to find innovation and to foster it, and then to translate that into a business model and into value for companies, and to make good ideas actually things that provide value to people and to companies. So I think right now we saw the AI kind of wave coming, and we saw that it was coming sometimes from, proprietary technology, that there was the innovation, but it was probably done in isolation. And we think that is because we need to embrace standards. Everybody, as a technology, we need to be able to build ecosystems. We need to give that technology to as many people as possible, so everybody can innovate and contribute and use the technology, and we can understand all of these implications, and we can really trust the technology. So I think we really want to make sure that it's not this complex thing that just some companies do. It's, it's a community, it's an ecosystem. We can all participate, we can all collaborate, and, do it. That's kind of been at the core of Red Hat since the Linux days.
It's such an important point, right? The openness. There are, the walled garden of a model that's been trained on data that you don't know where it's come from, right? They can do tremendous things, but Red Hat has never believed that that's the way to go about our business. We believe in the strength of the communities. We believe in open source. We believe in transparency. Yeah. And that's and bringing that to AI is to me a responsible and dare I say ethical way to do AI. It needs to be transparent. It needs to be open.
Red Hat, I think anybody that works for Red Hat would say, if it's open, we trust it. Yeah. If it's closed, it's harder to trust it. To save us a long conversation, do we have consensus over what open source means in AI yet? Probably not, right? What is the middle ground between, if it's open, we trust it, if it's closed, we don't, and yet, so you've got a model and it's on the internet and you can, to a degree, inspect it and the results and run it on a completely offline infrastructure. How do we begin to navigate, as people who value open source, how do we navigate that?
That's an excellent question. For every customer, every organization, whether they're a Red Hat customer or not, is going to make that determination for themselves as to where that line is. We obviously are maybe on one end of that bell curve where we believe in as much transparency and as much openness as possible while enabling the other use cases, right? So we partnered with IBM Research to bring the Granite models to our customers and to the open source community. And those are, I dare say, are as open as they come, right? You can see the data sets that have trained the Granite models. You can see what goes into it, and then we give you tools to customize that with your own data, right? So now you're taking a known good model that isn't infringing on anybody's IP, right? And now you're training it with your own data, which is not infringing on anybody's IP. And so now you can trust, at least from a legal IP standpoint, right? You can trust that the output isn't going to be using somebody else's technology, right? You have. So that's what our preferred motion is. But we know that we're at one side of that. We're in the completely transparent side. There's another set of customers that want to be able to take something that's off the shelf, like maybe from one of the model providers out there. They're capable models. They're incredibly capable models. And they're okay with those constraints. And so we don't want to say, no, you can't do that, because perhaps we think there's a better way. We want to meet customers where they are. We want to meet organizations where they are. And so we enable that use case with bring your own model use cases and OpenShift AI. So and then there's the complete walled garden of we're going to pay for access as a service, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's obviously not something that we do today. And that's a perfectly fine model for some organizations and for organizations that wish to partake of that. But that's not where we think the strength of community lies.
Yeah. I think the other kind of position we want to take with customers is that as of now, everybody only thinks about the openness of the model, the AI in terms of the model they're going to use. But we think that to make it really open, understandable, safe, and explainable, this is a system that, like all of the others, has to evolve and has a life cycle. And you have to think about all of these different steps or all of these different things that the model goes through. So you may take one model because you just decided on that one, but then you need to really make it your model by putting data, and you want to do that in a secure way. And you have to do that constantly because data constantly changes. Once you are serving this model or doing inference, you want to make sure that you have the guardrails necessary to know when something is going wrong, or the model is hallucinating, or when or to protect your intellectual property. So we also want to provide an ecosystem, an open ecosystem around the model. It's not only the models that make AI. We want to focus on everything else in a secure, safe platform to run these models that can handle the complete life cycle.
What is RHEL AI? Somebody hasn't heard of that. How would you define that for somebody?
Red Hat Enterprise Linux AI. So that was announced at Summit last year. It is a single server, whereas OpenShift AI is native Kubernetes. RHEL AI is meant for a single server, and it provides inferencing. It provides something called InstructLab, which is an upstream project for training and tuning your models in a way that is more approachable than what maybe a data science team would do today, right? Being able to kind of democratize the idea of training an LLM for your specific use case. It also includes models for synthetic data generation, which allows you to, what you do is you take some question and answers that your experts create and craft. And once you get to a certain number of these questions and answers, you can put those into the synthetic data generation module, and it generates more pairs of questions and answers that then can be looked at by a human or not, as you so choose. And that set of data, that larger set of data, can be used to train the model. Giving you different ways to answer the same question, right? Because not each of us are going to ask a question in a different way and maybe use slightly different terms, synonyms, etc. So the synthetic data generation helps accommodate that. So RHEL AI is that ability to take a Granite model or another model and bring it in, tune it if you wish, serve it in a single server environment.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, because one of the terms we have been hearing people refer to RHEL AI is a foundation model platform. For sysadmins and IT leaders who are just now trying to stick their head up and figure out, okay, I've got to actually learn this AI thing. What in the real world does foundation model platform mean?
For those folks, I would say a foundation model platform is a place where you can come and take a model and tailor it to your needs, and then put that workload into production for you, for whatever that use might be, right? For application developers, for internal use, for customers, for however you wish to use that model. But truly, it's a platform that's meant to take one of these models, and for us, we're working with the Granite models internally a lot, and tune that for your specific use, right? Whether that's a chatbot or perhaps contract language, etc. But every company does things a little differently. So you take that and you tune it, and then you serve it. And so that's your foundation model platform there. It encompasses each phase.
Yeah, I think as Adam said before, we're trying to meet our customers where they are. And AI, it's sometimes a very scary technology because, you start digging into, and then you get all this complex math, and then you start digging into a little more, and you have these GPUs that are limited by memory. And as an industry, I think everybody thought we were past that point. Like infrastructure, hardware was totally fungible. You didn't even know what hardware were you using. And now we're back again where it really matters, and it's very complex. So I think for customers who wanted to try foundation models, the promise was that before having to use or to gather, collect, and curate a large data set was so time consuming. And then you had to use that to train it. And then finally you had a model. Here it's like, this is an easier path. Somebody already did that for you. Here is the model. You can just use it, foundation model. The problem is it doesn't know your data. So here is also a platform that allows you to easily put your data available to this foundation model. And you can use it as it is and just start using the foundation model, serving it right there. And later on, when your capabilities or your requirements mature and you need, to run more models or to run different models or maybe combine predictive AI and foundation, then you can make a natural progression towards a more complex platform like OpenShift or Kubernetes-based platforms that are multi-node, distributed. They can have different types of accelerators. But if you really wanted to start just testing foundation model with the lowest barrier of entry and cost, you could do that with RHEL AI.
So I wanted to dig into that just a little more with RHEL AI, because the primary focus seems to be on the predictive LLM models. But AI is a huge field that goes far beyond just that. I mean, we have image classification, we have pattern recognition. There's been a big push in healthcare recently to be able to take data that we have, hundreds of years of medical data, and can we create a predictive model out of this to help us diagnose cancer or other things? Is RHEL AI as a product positioned to be able to be used in those situations, or is RHEL AI more focused on just the kind of the LLM area?
RHEL AI is focused on the generative AI space. So it's going to focus on the LLMs at this point. Our predictive platform is OpenShift AI, which combines all of what's in RHEL AI and then also adds the K-serve platform and a bunch of runtimes that we use for predictive workloads. OpenShift AI came from Red Hat OpenShift Data Science, which was a predictive platform to start a few years ago, and it has evolved over time. So at this point, RHEL AI will very likely be in the generative space. Okay. Whereas OpenShift AI is going to support both.
Talk to me a little bit about, and you've kind of alluded to it, what used to be a Red Hat product now has AI attached to it. So some examples would be RHEL. Now you got RHEL AI, OpenShift. We got OpenShift AI, Ansible. We got Ansible Lightspeed, which is essentially Ansible AI. Can you talk a little bit about how Red Hat's offerings are evolving with AI? I think I even heard somebody mention this offhandedly as I was walking through the thing. Is Red Hat an AI company now? How would you address that?
I think every company is going to be an AI company now, right? Okay. I think so the answer is yes. I think Red Hat is an AI company now. I think companies, and this is my bias being attached to AI at this point, but I have a long career that isn't in AI as well. I've never seen a technology move as fast as this. It is going to touch every aspect of our lives in technology, and even those that aren't in technology, like you just mentioned, healthcare, drug discovery, diagnosis, right? Maybe we can optimize patient records in some way, right? However we look at it, it is a matter of exactly. It is a way to help each industry be more efficient and hopefully more innovative. So yeah, Red Hat is an AI company now. And with the announcement of RHEL 10 today, generative AI is built into RHEL 10, right? And if you want it, it's there. And it's, instead of wondering, wait a minute, I can't remember that command, or what are the flags for that, or something like that. You could just ask the question real quick instead of reading a man page or whatnot, right? Is that an incredible life-changing use of AI? No, but is it a quality of life for your system administrators and people that are in that every day? Absolutely, right? So helping people do their jobs with an assistant, take that as the first step of AI, right? We have an assistant to help us remember the things. Oh, I only do that once a quarter. Yeah. Right. I don't remember the command line structure for that, or I don't remember how I don't remember where that playbook was, or whatever it might be. So, yeah, Red Hat is an AI company, and all the companies out there are going to be adopting, and they're going to be AI companies too. They just may not present themselves as such, right? Is the chatbot you're talking to when you contact your insurance agent a person or a chatbot? Do you know?
Doesn't matter.
And if they give you the right, if they give you the right answer and the right service, and and when you need to talk to a person, can you talk to a person? I think the answer is right. It doesn't matter.
Since you bring it up, talk to me about RHEL 10 and AI being integrated in it. For somebody who isn't familiar with that or didn't hear the announcement, what does that mean? What does that look like?
The generative AI capabilities in something like RHEL from the command line, again, is meant to give folks help, right? I don't remember how to do this, or I need X, Y, or Z to be done. And just save people time, save sysadmins time when they're going through and they're having to do everything that they do on a daily basis. They have more and more on their plate every quarter, right? It's how many servers are you maintaining? How many servers are you spinning up? How many CVEs need to be patched? All of these things have to happen, and if we can have an assistant help us with those things, then that's great. But RBU was not involved with the RHEL 10 release, so
exactly.
It's a little bit of a fuzzy answer there.
So you had made the comment that you think going forward, every company is going to be an AI company. However, there's going to be obviously an adoption curve for what industries and companies are going to actually be able to adopt it. There's a lot of companies and industries that can just jump on right now and go for it. There's others, like for instance, social services, some industrial manufacturing fields, that the adoption curve is going to be a lot slower. For those people in those industries, they hear, oh, AI. There's also a concern of, because we've seen this before from other companies, a product will shift and then its original purpose gets kind of left behind and not kept. So for the people who are right now, who before the AI craze have been relying on Red Hat services, what could you say to kind of, secure their feelings that, hey, don't worry, we've got new products, but everything you were able to do yesterday, we're still going to support?
Well, I'll point to our keynote this morning, and I'll point to the fact that Matt Hicks led with RHEL 10, right? And then and then after RHEL 10 came virtualization, right? And those are two big areas that we're hearing a lot in the virtualization space. Even myself in the AI unit, we talk to customers all the time, and virtualization's top on the mind for a lot of companies. And again, we're bringing AI to these other products, right? We're not leaving them behind. What we're doing is we're saying these things are good, solid offerings, and here's something else to make them a little bit better, right? And so we don't want, I mean, if you read the magazines and you listen and you see the advertisements, everything's AI all the time. And yeah, someday it'll get there, right? Maybe, but we're in a world right now where we need to execute, and people are doing their jobs today, and their job is not going to change, right? They still need to do the tasks they need to do, and we're here to help them do that, either in the way that they were doing it or give them a path to maybe a better, more efficient way as well. So in no way do we want anyone to think that they're going to be left behind. This is just, I think, Noah, you said it, a force multiplier is how we look at it.
So I think as Red Hat, as a company, we were always a platform company where we want to provide customers the best enterprise-grade platforms to run their workloads. It started with Linux, then we did it with cloud native and containers and OpenShift and virtualization. And for some telcos, we did OpenStack and then network virtualization. So we've always led with, we have an enterprise-grade platform that you can trust to run your workloads. It's secure, it's open source. We do all of the hardening process to make sure that this is enterprise-grade, and it can support massive scaling. It can really support mission-critical workloads. And it's the same with AI. We are not abandoning our platforms. We're just adding and augmenting those capabilities to AI. So we are seeing that containers in cloud native, it's a good thing to have the cloud native experience. So we cannot have it right now with AI because, again, we are not there yet as technology in general. But we do have a really good platform to run AI. We have a secure platform, whatever flavor you choose. And we are just making sure that any AI workload can safely and run there in an optimal way.
We had DevOps. Now we have AI ops. Talk to me about AI ops. Can you define that for me a little bit? Help me understand what that's about.
Sure. They're very analogous, right? DevOps and AI ops, ML ops, LLM ops. It goes by many acronyms. But there's a lot of overlap. The Venn diagrams are very close, right? There's some different technologies involved, of course, but everything you need to do in a DevOps environment, you also need to do in an ML ops or LLM ops environment as well, right? You need to provision servers and allocate resources and run workloads and manage a life cycle. All of those things are similar. And with OpenShift AI, we have given folks who are used to OpenShift a set of tools to do that in a way that's going to be familiar to them. Is there some learning to do? Absolutely, there's some learning to do, but it's minimal compared to an entirely different platform, say, right? If you know OpenShift and you know Kubernetes, moving to OpenShift AI is a light burden, not a heavy one.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we saw and we are so obsessed with automation. We have several automation tools. We think that to be able to do something at scale, you really need to kind of like mass production. You need to automate it. You need to be consistent with the operations no matter where you are. They need to be portable, and everything needs to be standardized or based on open standards so you can manage an AI workload the same way you manage your application and the same way you're going to manage an LLM. So we think we're just applying those software engineering principles that we've learned all through these past 2 decades to AI. You have to have a correct or a proper CI/CD system to be able to take a model, version it, automate the way that you are building that into a container into a container image, and then be able to trigger from there an automated process that will deploy it wherever it is that model needs to go. In your own core data center, to the cloud, to the edge. Doesn't matter, but it has to be automated. And then the other part is that all of these things are things we learn slowly as an industry. We came a long way from developers throwing the software to operations, to DevOps and GitOps even more. So we want to apply those same principles, but now to AI, maybe using the same tools. We believe firmly that containers are an accelerator for AI, because if you put everything into a container, you have this super large ecosystem of tooling that already exists to do things like attestation, to do security, to do DevSecOps, to do all of these things that have matured over all of this time. And now you just apply them, or it just happens that inside of that container, there is AI. So we believe that we need to leverage all of those good software engineering practices, and kind of on the other side, maybe there's not a developer, it's an data scientist, which is a little bit more challenges because data scientists are hyper specialized in some very specific area, and all these DevOps and software engineering stuff is new to them. But we think we have all the tools to make this collaborative and to bridge the gap between the two of them.
And I'll just add one other thing from a DevOps perspective. I think DevOps is used to living in a very commoditized world, right? Like processors are ubiquitous, memory is ubiquitous. Your servers, you spin them up. Total cost of ownership for any one piece of that is not something you need to consider much anymore, because those things are readily available and on average relatively inexpensive. Now you're saying, okay, now I have to do the same thing in a world where the infrastructure may not be as ubiquitous or affordable, right? And do I need to run this model on the latest, greatest chip? Or am I paying for, am I using a fraction of that chip's power and spending so much more to reserve that capacity, right? Because GPUs are just, they are still in quite demand, as you can imagine, right? So there's a little bit of an extra complexity, I think, when it comes to the LLM workloads, right? Because they're the ones that are running off the GPUs for someone who's doing AI ops. And so there's definitely a cost component, perhaps not in the development part, but certainly when you get to production.
Adam, Bellusci, Myriam, Centenas, I appreciate the time. Thank you both for joining us. We'll get you back on the program soon.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you so much.
The music in our ears means we're out of time. I thank you for joining us. You can catch all of the past episodes by going to podcast.asknoahshow.com. While you're there, you'll find all of the articles and resources we use to make the show. Find out what I'm doing. Stay up to date with the latest NOAAC.us. We're back next week, 6 p.m. Central. AskNoahShow.com. Have a good week.